On behalf of Mitchell, Juanita, Ray, and Claire, I would like to thank each and every one of you, and we would celebrate the life of Tommy Ray Johnson, Bud Johnson, their daddy, granddaddy, and we would like to thank everyone for all the acts of kindnesses that they have shown during this time. My name is Jeff Weaver, and I am Bud Johnson's nephew. And I would like to say, first of all, how very privileged I am that Mitchell and Juanita and Ray and Claire would ask me to say a few words in honor of Uncle Bud. I loved Uncle Bud and Aunt Cat, and my cousins Mitchell, Juanita, and Ray. We were so close. And later on, Claire. I just know Bud and Cat played an instrumental part in a lot of the joy I had in my childhood. When I was just a small child, Uncle Bud and Aunt Cat and my mom and daddy bought houses side by side. And even better than that, less than a block away, lived my granny and my grandpa. And I have to say, what precious, treasured memories were made, and what wonderful fun we had as children. It was really a glorious time. It was a wonderful, special time. And I tell you, us children may not have ever went to Disney World, but we had it right on the top of Sorrow Valley. We had the best time, and when I look back on those bygone yesterdays, I think now I was so blessed. There's a proverb that says, train a child in the way that he should go, and when he is old, he will not depart from it. I know as a child, you look up to adults. You look to their life to see what you want to grow up to be. And I can say from my heart, truthfully from my heart, that my Uncle Bud was a really, really good man. He and Aunt Cat and his children, he loved Aunt Cat and his children, and he strived hard to give them all he could. But the most important thing he had was peace in his home, and a family that cherished him and respected him. In a time like this, how can you have enough words and the adequate words to express how you feel about a man who lived 90 years and meant so much to so many? We can be glad in our hearts for this thought. Where a beautiful soul has been, there will always be a beautiful trail of memories. Uncle Bud was born in 1934 in the depths of the Great Depression, when most people had nothing and just scraped to get by. But when his daddy saw his baby boy, he called him my little buddy boy, hence the name Bud. That might be a reflection and a testament of his life to come, a buddy and a friend to all who knew him. In Proverbs 20 it says, a man that makes friends must be a friend himself. And there are friends that stick closer than a brother. That's the kind of friend Uncle Bud was to his friends and the many people that he came across in his life. He was a true friend to them, and he loved every one of them. And sometimes you hear stories when you're little or young that make impressions on your life that you never forget. And I remember one Uncle Bud told me, and I'd like to share it with you. He said that when he was just a little boy, young boy, he said he and Aunt Katie, they were living in a little house, little shotgun house, right on the railroad, right here in Benson. And he said it was really cold weather. And he and his sister saw this homeless man walking down the railroad track. And Bud said, when he got right in front of the house, he started walking across the yard to where they were at. And he said, of course, they were afraid, and they ran in the house and told their mama. And says that the man knocked on their door, and when his mother, Granny, came to the door, he asked her if she had anything to eat. And Bud said he followed his mama to the kitchen and said, Mama, are you going to give him our biscuits inside me? Because that was about all they really had to eat. And she said, he's hungry. We'll be okay. And Bud said the man thanked her, and he walked away, and Bud said he had holes in his shoes. And he said as soon as him and Aunt Katie watched him, and as soon as he disappeared, he said his grandpa Guthrie come up on the truck with boxes full of groceries. And Bud said to me, he said, that was the Lord working, taking care of us all. That was faith. As a boy and teenager, he didn't have an easy life at all, but he stayed in school and worked all he could to help at home. He shined shoes at a barber shop, not a glamorous job, but he took pride in his work and he saved his money. He told me when he went to pay for his class ring, he said he handed him a $100 bill. And I guess that must have been a satisfying feeling when you've been through so much adversity in your life to know you've accomplished something worthwhile all on your own. And that would be his work ethic and ambition in every job and occupation he had throughout his life. He told me another story once. He worked for the tree company. And he said some town they were working in, there was a terrible ice storm, snowstorm, it was really bad, and there was no power. And he said his boss had already sent some men to try to figure out what was going on. They come back, said they couldn't find it, didn't know what was going on. And he said his boss man turned and said, Bud, go see what's wrong. And said Bud went out through them deep woods, he told me, and he found a long pine leaning over on the wires. And he said, I cut it myself. And it wasn't long before the people had power. There's men in the world that you can call on that you know get the job done. And he was one of them. Psalms 22, Proverbs 22 says, A good name is rather to be chosen than riches, and a loving favor than silver or gold. Uncle Bud had such a kind, loving spirit. He loved his family with all of his heart. Growing up, I never saw him and Aunt Cat say a crossword, a sharp cutting word, or get in an argument or a fuss. Never once in my life. And his children didn't either. And they pulled together as a team, and they worked together to try to have a little something. And they both wanted to give their children better than what they had had. And I said before, and most of all, he wanted them to have peace and tranquility in their home life. I know Mitchell, Juanita, and Ray had their own treasured memories of their father that they could put in the treasure box of their heart for as long as they lived. And when Claire was born, no doubt, she gave Cat and Bud more joy and happiness than she'll ever know. The sun rose and set in their little granddaughter. And she was the comfort of their old age. And I know she loved them with all her heart. Proverbs 13 says, a good man leaves an inheritance to his children's children. That shows you the role a grandparent can play. And I'm sure Claire has a lot in her heart to remember her granddad and grandmother too, how much they done for her, how much they loved her. And Juanita told me something yesterday that really impressed me. She told me, and I thought it was so beautiful, she told me her daddy's will was one sentence, the whole thing. I leave all that I have to my 3 children to share and share alike. That says a lot about a man, the man, and it says a lot about his children. And I think another thing that's so amazing, very amazing in these days, in the last 5 years, Uncle Bud's health was surely declining. And he was battling dementia, and some days he didn't know a lot. But you know, his children took care of him at home, and the thought of ever doing or putting him anywhere or doing anything with him never crossed their mind. They stayed with him to the end. I think that says a lot about the man. It says a lot about the children. And I ask everyone here today, what kind of inheritance are you going to leave behind? It's not just silver and gold. Let's hope we leave, as Uncle Bud did, a good name and a loving spirit. That's really the greatest treasure. That's all.
How sweet the sound that saved a wretch
Welcome everyone. I first want to say what a pleasure it is to look out and see so many familiar faces and friends of our daddy that he made along the way throughout his meaningful journey of 90 years. Anyone who truly knew him knew that making and forming new relationships and nurturing them was etched in his DNA and was a big part of who he was. You know, he had a really sense of humor, and he always made things fun for us throughout our entire childhood. So I want to share a funny story about how he met my mother. You know, he was very lighthearted, charismatic. He loved to joke and laugh off any negativity that tried to come his way. His respect and adoration for the women in his life cultivated his tenderness, ability to attract those who appreciated that. His small stature never posed any problems that his big personality could not take care of. And speaking of small stature, the funny story about how he met my mother, it was kind of a little flirt, anyone who knew him in his younger years. But when he met her, he was working with Aslan Tree Company, a big ice storm over in Chapel Hill. So the different groups were called together, different units were called together to handle things of that nature. his group was in Chapel Hill with a fella he befriended, who happened to be my mother's brother. Well, as time went on, they stuck him in hotels, and they stayed for days. And the weekend came, and her brother, he really got attached to him, which was no surprise. He said, "Hey, I just lived up the road in Siler City, Chatham County. Why don't you just come home with me this weekend and stay? I know you would love some country food, some home cooked food, and a fire. I think you'd like my family." So of course my dad, he sure grabbed onto that opportunity. They headed off, and on the way home, I stopped at the little Rose's Dime store at Siler City, where my mom was working in her senior year of high school. She worked behind the candy counter. I'm not sure, a lot of you are the age that can remember this here, some of you can't, but they had the sliding glass doors with all the candy all around the entire, like a U-shaped counter. You slid the glass back, you scooped it up, you put it in a little bag, and you had to put it on a little scale to weigh it, to know how much it would cost. Well, my dad goes by to get a couple weaknesses he had was cute little women and sweets. He loved chocolate-covered peanuts, and that's what he ordered. My mom scooped them out for him, and then her brother came along and said, "Oh yeah, this is my sister. When did you meet my sister before we made it home?" So when she was doing it, she was like standing up tall, and of course having to get up to the scale that was on top of the counter. So she appeared to be tall, and of course as you get older, still the challenges of finding, if you're kind of vertically challenged, it's always difficult finding someone that might be sort of a good match for you. So he was like, he's told me this story, so I'm telling it. He told me the story that he was like, he's like, I just, it was instant attraction. He just knew she was the one for him. But she was really tall. He's like, oh, well, too bad for that. And then suddenly she disappeared, and he's like looking around for her, and she walks around to the end of the counter with his little bag to give to him, and she's like his height, or a little shorter, and because she was up on a stool. I mean, she had to stand on the stool to be able to look over the counter so that she could, weigh the candy and get them for the customer. So, I guess things work in mysterious ways that he kind of knew that that was going to be the beginning of something that would last for 50 years or so. Wasn't long they were married. She went back to her family to live Siler City from December to May until she graduated high school. Her family never knew she was married. My dad came back to Minson to live with his family. And even though that one time when he met on an icy adventure to get the ice off the trees in Chapel Hill that one time, I'm sure on his trips back to Siler City in the interim were not quite as icy and cold. So anyway, they eloped, had a honeymoon at the Siler City Hotel. They went back to living their lives, and then he swooped her up and brought her to the big metropolis of Benson, where she was welcomed with open arms and open hearts by all his family. His brothers, his sister, his mother, his parents, they all loved her. They all took her in, just like she was one of their own. Not long after that, he was drafted to the Army, to New Mexico, Albuquerque, New Mexico, where after basic training, that's where he was stationed. And my mom did the best she could to figure out how to get there to him, and she hitched a ride with somebody, and there she was. And they lived 3 really fun-filled, adventurous years there together. I've seen lots of pictures of them together. They had a really, really good beginning for both of them to have never gone out of their small town to live such a good life. In the Army, in the obituary, if you read that, you'll see how important that part of his life was. And he told us many stories about that, how it molded him and made him into the person that he wanted to be moving forward in life. He was sort of the golden boy. I take it that he was sort of the golden boy. Everything he did, he was just a favorite right away. He quickly, within 3 years, moved up into the ranks of corporal, before he was discharged home. And again, as Jeff said, our childhood was just wonderful. I can't even begin to tell you how wonderful it was. And it might sound a bit cliche to say this. I know everybody probably says it, but my brothers and I just had the best childhood ever. We were blessed to experience numerous experiences with a man who never wavered. He never spoke harsh words. He always encouraged peace in our household and made everything we did fun and memorable. As a child, we've never realized how challenging it has to be to provide for 3 children on menial salaries, a high school education, which, back then I guess was a pretty big thing. But to us, the love that was always present made us think we had it all. And then he went the extra mile, and he was able to, have us a place at the beach, which we made so many more good memories. We met cousins and uncles there that we would have never known in our life if we hadn't had the opportunity. In his older years, and even, when his mind started playing tricks on him, I would take him to doctor's appointments in Raleigh. He would approach total strangers and go up to them and say, "I think I know you." Everybody, he would go straight to, "I think I know you." And while some people would shy away from him, thinking, because he appeared to be a confused old man, others welcomed his natural warmth and entertained a brief conversation with him. For any of those who had the pleasure to spend time with him, the first thing he would say is, "I'm from Benson. I was born in Benson. I was raised in Benson. I've been from Benson my entire life." He loved his community. He loved his town of Benson. And he never missed an opportunity to take a ride up to Warren Drug and enjoy an ice cream cone and an orangeade and sit at the table and look out the window, and I could just see him. I could just watch his eyes, and he watched the sidewalks. He looked at all the buildings, and he would tell me stories when he used to ride his bike on the sidewalks, and when he used to jump from building to building with his cousins. He remembered those stories, and like I said, his mind was definitely playing tricks on him by then, but he remembered all those things that were very endearing to him. I wanted to share just a couple of things. I can just tell you, probably one of the best things about him is he truly led by example. I mean, he truly did. He believed in the simple things, the things that held the most meaning, and the things that would leave a lasting impression. I remember once when I was riding in the car with my daughter Claire. I think she was about 5 years old. And riding along, and I'm sure she was hitting punches some Barbie music or something, that I had heard 100 times. But she looks over at me suddenly and says, "Mama, has Papa always been this way?" And I'm like, what, honey? What do you mean, how? What way are you talking about? And this is a 5-year-old. She said, "Has he always been so sweet and kind and never gets upset with me about anything?" And my answer was, I never really thought of it that way at the time, but my answer was, "Yes, honey, I guess he really has." And he was, as you're growing up, and you depend so much on your parents, and he was somebody who was always there for us no matter what we needed. I know, as being a parent too, that we sometimes overlook the fact that that parents are real people. They have needs and they have thoughts and desires. Because all we knew is he was there for us. So the last years that my brothers and I were able to spend with him, even though with his dementia, we were able to spend time with him, and we were able to sit down and talk with him, listen to him, hear his stories, and his memories, which gave me a lot of peace and comfort in knowing that no matter what stage of life you're in, no matter how life takes its toll on you, that those memories are there, and they're deep, deep down inside your heart. And nobody can ever take those away. Because he might not could tell you if he had eaten that day, but he could tell you what he did 50 years before in the most meaningful times of his life and the best memories he made. And I just believe that for me, and hopefully for my brothers too, that was kind of God's way of preparing us all, knowing that when this day came, that we could have peace and comfort in knowing that. The other affirmation, not that I needed any more affirmation of the kind of person he was our best friend. He was totally our best friend, best father, best papa, best friend to all, and definitely our best friend. But another affirmation that I got recently is someone very near and dear to me recently shared a little secret they had had their entire life. And this is what he said. He said, I never told you this before, but as a child, I spent many days of my life wishing that your dad could be my dad. So when I say that we had the best life, that we had the best father, and we never lacked for anything, what we didn't have because we didn't really care. That was a reflection of what he held near and dear to him. And he was such an example that it passed on through us. And I really hope that, we can continue that and pass on the generations to come. And it's such a pleasure seeing some of the older faces here that I haven't seen in years, but I remember as a child meeting with my dad, and they've taken the time to come and spend some time and celebrate his life, because definitely a celebration of 9 years is what we're here for today. So thank you so much for putting up with me, and I've been told I have the gift of gab, a little bit like him, and I was hoping that that's what would get me through today. And these kind, loving, friendly faces, along with that, and the strength that I have gained from all the years of being his daughter, being proud to be called his daughter, I think is what did it today. So thank you everyone so much.
Hello everyone. Over the last several days I've seen a lot of photos and heard a lot of stories about my grandpa's early life, the good and bad, the pivotal moments and trials that made him into the person that I got to experience as my papa. And I realized that I had a very unique perspective because I got to learn what all of those attributes and character traits were firsthand in real time by watching and learning from my first best friend. He kept me from the time I was 6 weeks old, really until I went to college, so I spent the better part of most of my formative years with him. He was a big proponent of teach them young, so before I could write my name, I was sitting on his lap, riding the tractor for long days while I worked in his garden and accompanying him around town as he delivered freshly picked peas or a set of table and chairs he had built for someone, of course, as he sat and talked for a while. He taught me how to pick the best watermelon in the patch, how to know where an egg comes from, and how to tell the difference between a girl chicken and a boy chicken. I'm sure most people here have heard that story as well. He taught me that if you left home with enough time, there would never be a reason to be in a rush, and I'm still working on that. He taught me that quarreling, as he called it, or arguing, especially with the ones you love, was the biggest waste of time. He taught me what an IOU is, and I'm pleased to say that we still have not found the bill because I would hate to see the total I've racked up. He taught me how to drive, many different things, and with a few bumps in the road, literally, but he never lost his patience along the way. He taught me how to dance like no one is watching, and that play, imagination, and cutting up is a vital part of life, no matter your age. He taught me what love thy neighbor really meant. He taught me how to treat friends like family, and that family is the most treasured gift of all. Proverbs 12:20 says, those who promote peace have joy. He named the road that we would both eventually, my family and him, eventually go to build houses on right next to each other. He named it after me, Claire Drive. So, but long before anything was there, or any of the memories that I just touched on were made, he lived in a way which was already providing me with a true sanctuary to grow up in. He gave me the whole world. I've read so many sweet comments over the last few days, and people have called him so many wonderful things. Hardworking, lively, dedicated, gentle, funny, stable, a leader, a flirt, sincere, and so many more. But to me, all those things are just a combination of him being pure of heart, a pure person who treated everyone equally and opened his heart and home to everyone he knew. Proverbs 12:11 says, one who loves a pure heart and who speaks with grace will have the king for a friend. Although it's in very different circumstances today, I know for a fact he would have absolutely loved having some of his favorite people all together for a celebration. The only thing missing is an upbeat song for him to open the dance floor to. So again, we just want to say thank you to everyone for coming, and because we think that he would have liked it, obviously no pressure, but we want to open up the floor for if anyone wants to say a memory or a word about him. Thank you.
I would like to say Claire can kind of relate to the chickens. When Lex was a little girl, we came over to visit her mom and dad, and he brought Lex out there to the chickens, and Chip taught her how to collect the eggs and all about the chickens and everything, gardening, and he's come to the house and taught us how to plant, and before we knew, we had big cabbages this big around, and potatoes, and Lex out there learning how to farm and everything, even though she's a city girl. So we can really relate to that. And the next thing I knew, we had 70 chickens. You know, I just go nowhere. It just happened, and I was like, that all started with Uncle Bud. So I just wanted to share that with everyone.
I'd like to thank Uncle Bud, because if it weren't for him, I'd never learned how to swim. Because I learned how to swim on First Street Canal, First Street. I remember, that's it. We probably never went to the beach as kids. And I just remember, we've been talking to Michelle about a couple of days about dirt things, like, really? Yeah, I learned how to swim on First Street, and I thought it was so funny, because I complained all day, and I thought somebody threw me in that canal. I learned how to swim by the end of the day. I just learned ever since, so thank you for that. But the childhood memories were big. They were.
I can say something on behalf of myself and Lindsay, I'm sure. My name's Whitney. I've been friends with Claire for as many years as I can count, but growing up, I actually never had a pawpaw. Mine passed before I was born, and Pawpaw was always like a pawpaw to me. He met me when I was in the 8th grade, I guess, but never one time complained about how many Bojangles runs he had to take, how much money he had to spend, how many times he picked us up from cheerleading, from gymnastics. He would ride down Main Street in Vincent with the peace sign and he was such a big part of my life growing up, and I always thank him for being like a pawpaw to me too. So he's definitely one of the best men that I've ever known. So yeah.
He loved his girls. Loved his girls.
Uncle Bud didn't just teach Buck how to swim, he taught us a lot. Started City when we were little kids, but he was just, there's a common theme in everybody's description about Uncle Bud, and that's really what he brought to every one of us. You know, he brought that good, happy-go-lucky kind of, person that he was, and everywhere he went, he never knew a stranger. He was a great brother to my mom, and I know to Aunt Nancy and Katie and Paul's brother and all. So, he taught us what Volkswagens were. What else was it? He taught us what the, great big crab was at, Surf City, not to touch it. Yeah, somebody did touch it. But, yeah, Uncle Bud, he never met a stranger. It's just a common thing through everybody's descriptions today, so I think that's what he was. Just a good man.
I would like to say, I have been knowing Bud for a long time. And I work with his wife, and I've been knowing Nancy and all the family for a good while, and since I can remember. And I thank God that if they were saying, talking about how good he never met a stranger. And he always liked to catch jokes and talk to you. And I used to buy all my peas and my cards and stuff go out there and get it. And I just always felt like they were part of my family. Nancy, Sherry, Juanita, all our children came up with the school together, and I just thank God that I was able to come today and let the family know that he was always a part of my family. Him and my husband had born in the same month, April, and the same year, 34. Even though I have gone on, but I still think about Bud. He would talk to me, I'd go to the one show, and he was just a good man, and his wife was too. And all the family, Juanita and all of them, we were just like a one big family. And I thank God for having them in my life. And I hope y'all know that anything that I can do for any of it, I'll be right there. And I always have said, I tell anybody, I have a white sister, that's Nancy. She says she have a black sister, and it's me. But I really have enjoyed being a part of this family, the Johnson family. Because I've known from Miss Brady, Mr. Tommy on up. I knew all of them. I would get rich, y'all look at me. But I'm 84 years old. Thank God that he buried me this long. I remember the Johnson and my dad and Miss Brady. They were just like sisters and brothers. It was about there before he come on to see us. He lived in Philadelphia, but he was, and Mr. Tommy Ray always just like sisters and brothers. And I will never forget it.
I also want to say that, just when you look back on your childhood, I wasn't as blessed to live right there in that little row of houses. We were a few blocks over on Home Street back in the day, and then we went over the bridge, and that was quite a change for our family. But just every memory you have, whether it's being at the beach with those big blue crabs, I think Bobby was the one that got on the beach. Just all of that stuff is just happy memories. And I also just want to say, when he would get out on his little white station wagon and he would make his rounds, he would always stop by my grandmother's house, Grand Kitty. And, and that's just one person he would stop in, check on anything they needed, making his rounds to Glencoe and wherever, and just, was just a bright spot of everybody's day.
And he never went unnoticed. He was even cutest when he graduated. He was very cutest.
Anybody else?
Thank everyone for their comments.
We want to invite everybody, when we leave the funeral home, to go to Rose Lawn to conclude the service. So if you feel like you can go, we'd love to have you come out there and join us. And before we leave, I want to have a closing prayer. So, let's bow our heads. know that you have planned this day, that we can celebrate the life of Tommy Bud Johnson. We also celebrate his entrance into your holy kingdom and the reunion he is having with the loved ones that have gone before him. Father, please be with Mitchell, Juanita, Ray, and Claire, and his sisters Nancy and Cherry. Strengthen them, O Lord, in the time of their loss, and comfort them and give them the peace that only you can give. We also thank you for the opportunity today that we can gather a remembrance of Uncle Bud, and we thank you for the blessing how he has blessed our lives himself for so many years. And we thank you, Father, that you gave him your love all the days of his life, and you give us your love today. We pray that your presence will be with us, and that you will wrap your arms around us, and that your angels will be all around. And we pray and ask this in the name of Jesus.
Y'all know